The road winds up through the trees, gaining significant elevation with every new curve. If you're gonna build a radio station for the dead, then you have to be up high. Whether that's true scientifically or not doesn't matter. It's the founding principle of WHDS. You want to reach heaven, you gotta climb, is the unofficial motto of the station. The official motto is WHDS, bringing radio to those in need the most. A little disingenuous considering the dead technically don't need anything. They're dead after all. And to say they are the ones in need the most? Well, I know more than a few living folks who have some needs that are a little more important than any needs the dead may have. Because, and this brings us back to my first point, they are dead. My old Ford gives a hard lurch as I take the last turn and point my little pickup truck toward the parking lot, set in front of a plain cinder block building with a massive antenna array sticking up behind it. There are 6 cars in the parking lot. 4 will be gone by the time I clock in. The other 2 will be gone before midnight. Yet, all are parked directly in front of the station, making me snake around the cinder block building to the 4 leftover spaces. One night I'd love to just park in front of the station and not have to walk all the way around to the front door, especially on a night like tonight when the temperature is dropping down in the teens and there's snow expected. Plus, I've got this cough that refuses to go away. Just hangs on and keeps getting tighter and tighter. But I'm sure my station mates feel the same way about their situation and are glad as hell they get to park in one of the front spaces. Who am I to begrudge them that? As I drive by the station, I notice someone standing in the station's front window. It's definitely a man, just not someone I recognize immediately. But there are more than a few holiday decorations taped to the glass, so it's probably Dennis or Nelson, and I just can't quite see their face. My truck makes that squealing noise when I take a left turn. I need to get the power steering fixed, except I'm a nighttime DJ at a radio station that caters to the dead, so I don't exactly make new power steering pump money. And if Dennis's latest grumblings are any indication, I may not even have this job much longer. Not because I'm let go, but because the station is finding long-term funding difficult to procure. I make sure to take a wide turn so I don't clip the tree by the corner of the building. Someone needs to trim those branches, but no one will step up to be that someone. So wide turns every evening it is. There's a black Cadillac in my usual parking spot. I take the next space over and ease my Ford in next to the caddy. It's an old caddy, long and sleek. A land yacht, my uncle used to say. I grab my backpack and shove my door open. Then I step out, turn around, and slam the door with my ass as hard as I can, because if I don't, then that door will slip back open and my truck will be full of snow when I'm ready to leave in the morning. I head around to the front entrance, ducking under the tree as I go. When I get to the front, there's no one standing in the window, but I do see the hint of condensation next to a glittery cutout of the baby Jesus. Someone had been there breathing hot breath on cold glass. "Hey, Wendy," I say as I step inside and head for the front desk to sign in. "Damn, it's cold in here. Is the heat not working?" "Nope," Wendy says, not looking up from her phone. Her index finger scrolls, and scrolls, never stopping on anything, just scrolling until the end of time. I cough hard, maybe playing it up a bit, when Wendy doesn't look up or seem to care that I sound like I'm birthing a lung. I ask, "Carrie working on it?" Carrie's our maintenance woman. She can fix anything. That is, if she feels like it. "Nope," Wendy says again. "What do you mean, nope?" I ask as I sign the work log clipboard. My backpack slips from my shoulder, rides down my arm, and slams into my hand just as I finish signing, knocking the clipboard off the counter of the reception desk. I quickly pick it up and give Wendy an apologetic smile. She doesn't notice because she's not even looking. "You're off shift soon," I state as I adjust my backpack strap. "Doing anything fun tonight?" I live vicariously through my coworkers. By the time I get home after a shift, I'm so tired that I usually sleep all day and only wake up about an hour before I have to get ready to do it all over again. Lately, I haven't had to blame my lethargy on a late night shift. My body just feels run down with this damn cough. "Nope and no," Wendy says. I'm walking away, ready for the small talk to just die off as it usually does. But I stop when she gives me the old double nope. "So nothing fun tonight and you're not off shift soon?" I ask. "Yup and yup," she says, her nose still in her phone. "How late are you working? You aren't here all night, are you?" I ask. She shrugs, and I know our little talk is done. Once Wendy stops giving monosyllabic responses and switches to physical clues, then she's reached her limit of human interaction. Not that I blame her. I work the night shift at a radio station in the middle of nowhere for a reason. People aren't my favorite. At least, in-person people. Call-ins? You bet. They're what get me through the night. That thought brings up an old 70s song in my head, and I hum it as I slip through the double doors past the reception desk. "Frederick!" a jolly voice calls out the second I'm through the doors. "Come talk!" "My slot starts soon, Dennis," I say to our station manager as I pass his office door. Dennis could have the bigger office toward the back of the station, but Dennis likes to be in the here and now, as he says. He likes seeing everyone come and go, so he has the smallest office of everyone. Yet somehow, everyone ends up in it. "Come on, Frederick!" Dennis shouts as I keep walking. "It'll only take a sec." I sigh, pause, and then backtrack along the hallway until I'm level with his office door. "Don't stand out there," he says from behind his small desk, waving me in. "Come, have a seat. Let's chat." "What about?" I ask, not ready for the inevitable. "Am I being let go?" "Let go? Heavens no!" Dennis says and looks honestly taken aback. "Why would you be let go?" "Because the station is going under," I say. "Ad revenue has plummeted year over year since no one living can hear our broadcast?" "Exactly," he says as if I have reminded him of the best thing ever. I was trying to be flippant and ended up somehow making Dennis's point for him. I'm confused. So I step into his office and take a seat in front of his desk and the only other chair in the space. He has a stack of folding chairs in the corner if more than one person needs to sit down, but we all usually stand if it's going to be one of those meetings. Folding chairs are cold and hard on the ass, especially at my age. "We have a new investor," Dennis says, beaming. "He's here tonight to get a look at things, so I need you to be on your game." I start to respond, but a coughing fit hits me, and I have to cover my mouth with one hand while I lift the other in the universal gesture of hold on. "That doesn't sound good," Dennis says and shakes his head. "I told you to go to the doctor, Frederick. Have you gone to the doctor yet, Frederick?" "I'm guessing no." "No," I manage to choke out as I shake my head and pat my chest. I suck in a breath, and the rattle from my lungs is deafening. "But I will. I promise. Just been too tired to do it after work." "How's your diet?" Dennis asks. "Are you eating kale? You really should. So many antioxidants. Get yourself a kale smoothie on your way into town tomorrow morning. That'll fix you right up." I do not want to get sucked into yet another kale discussion with Dennis, so I clear my throat and say, "Who's the investor? He the one with the caddy out back?" He is, Dennis replies. "Wonderful man. Mr. Griffin is his name." "Griffin. Okay, good to know," I say. I cough once, then choke back the next one as Dennis's eyes go wide. "I'm fine. Relax. Mr. Griffin is keen to meet you, Frederick," Dennis says. "He's a fan." That means he's a fan of Freddy Hayes, not Frederick Hazelton. Freddy Hayes is my on-air name, although I still prefer to be called Freddy, not Frederick, even when I'm not on the air. But Dennis likes to call me Frederick, so I'm Frederick in his office. "That's so?" I ask and start to stand up. "Well, it'll be fun to talk to him when I have a moment." "Where do you think you are going, mister?" he asks, frowning. "Sit back down. We're not done here." "Right. Sorry," I say and sit back down. "What else?" "Well, he says and scrunches up his face. "Mr. Griffin is planning on making a few changes once the deal goes through." "I'm sure he is," I reply, nodding. Most new owners want their stamp on something, even though that something is working just fine without that stamp. Yes, I hear you there, Frederick, Dennis says, and I can feel he's holding back. What are the changes? I ask. Dennis replies, then laughs. Oh, yes, the changes, the changes. A range of emotions wash over his face, then he claps his hands, making me jump a little. You know what? He says way too enthusiastically. It can wait. In fact, I'll have Mr. Griffin tell you all about the changes. I'll probably just screw it all up. I doubt that, I say and mean it. Dennis is a lot of things. A screw-up is not one of them. I shrug and smile back at him. But if you want him to talk to me about it, then that's fine by me, Dennis. Good man, Dennis says, then starts pointing at random shit on his desk. Well, as you can see, I'm busy. And you are going to be late for your slot, mister. He chuckles, and I chuckle with him even though I'm well aware I'm going to be late for my slot, and it sure isn't my fault. Oh well. Get out of here, you, and go make some listeners happy tonight, he says and waves me off. I'm out that door and down the hall in a flash. But I do have to stop before I enter the studio as a cough catches in my chest. It feels like a vice is squeezing me from the inside out. I'm barely able to grunt the cough away. I straighten up, shake my head to clear it, then look up at the sign above the studio door that reads, "On the Air," in bright red neon. The second that sign goes dark, I push the door open and step inside the studio, tossing my stuff onto a chair stuck in the corner by the old console we only use when the new console decides it wants to be an asshole and glitch out. Considering how shitty things are made these days, the new console is an asshole way too often. Well, if it isn't the great Freddy Hayes, Sienna Chapman says from her chair in front of the main mic. She pushes the boom arm to the side and swivels her chair so she can face me head on. Then her usual high-wattage smile dips a little. You okay, Freddy? Yeah, I'm fine. Why? I ask as I go to the small coffee pot we keep in the studio. It's empty, of course. I hold up the stained glass pot and give it a shake at Sienna. Really? Busy evening, she says and shrugs, but her eyes don't leave mine. No, really, Freddy. You look a little green around the gills. Then she purses her lips and squints one eye. You haven't gone to the doctor yet, have you? Haven't had time, I say and walk to the studio door. And I've already been reamed by Dennis about it. So don't you start too. Guy your age shouldn't be messing around with his health, she says. I'm 58, not 85, I say. But I'm sure to a 30-something like you, that's ancient. Roman ruins and broken pyramids ancient, she says with a laugh. But you need to take better care of yourself, Freddy. The new owner has mentioned your name a lot so far. You can't die now. This might be your big break. My big breaks came in 93, 99, and 2002. I reply, then hold up the empty coffee pot. And look where those got me. Making coffee so I can start my night slot and work that mic and those phones for the next 10 hours. 99? Sienna asks. I don't know that story. Which station were you at? Coffee first, I say, and head out of the studio. I don't have to look back to know the on-the-air sign is glowing red. I'm so used to commercial breaks that I don't even need to count them off in my head anymore. I knew Sienna was back on the air the second I closed the studio door. Timing is everything in our biz. The break room is 3 doors down and I step in there, headed straight for the sink so I can rinse and fill the pot. But as I face the sink and reach for the handle, I pause. The hair on the back of my neck stands up and I slowly turn around. Hello, a man says, his face familiar. Then I realize he is the one who was staring out the front window when I arrived. Hi, I say. Freddy Hayes, he says. Yep, that's me, I say and wait. He's dressed in a very nice, understated black suit. His tie is loosened and the top button of his crisp white shirt is undone, telling me he's trying to be casual, but the way he holds his back ramrod straight tells me he's not used to the casual life. Mr. Griffin, he says and stands up. I blink a few times as the break room swirls about me. Shadows fill the corners, and slip and slide down the walls before snapping back to their hiding places. With a hand out, I catch myself against the sink just before my knees buckle. The empty coffee pot slips from my fingers and tumbles to the floor. I watch in horror as it descends, its fall a slow-motion wreck that I can't look away from. But in the split second, when I'm ready for the pot to shatter at my feet, a manicured hand slips under it and saves the pot from its certain doom. "Nice catch," I say and lean back against the sink, my chest heaving as I struggle to get a full breath into my sick lungs. "Sorry about that. I'm a little under the weather. So I have been told," Mr. Griffin says, and goes to hand me the coffee pot, then thinks otherwise and reaches past me to set it in the sink. "You do look a little pale." "Huh," I say and let a rattling breath out slowly. "Sienna said I look green around the gills." "That too," he says and smiles. "You are a multi-hued mess." I raise my eyebrows, and Mr. Griffin takes a step back. "Oh, sorry. That sounded unkind, didn't it?" he asks. No, I say and smirk. "It was a surprising response." "Why is that?" he asks, and cocks his head to the side. "It's because of how I'm dressed, isn't it? I don't come off cool in this suit. I knew I should have dressed down more. Go with a t-shirt and jeans, with a blazer over it." "Yeah, the blazer would have really said cool," I reply and give him a wink. "I'm just fucking with you." I drop the F-bomb and wait for his reaction, but he doesn't have one. He's already turning and going back to the chair at the table, where he takes a seat and grins at me. "Did Dennis tell you I'm a fan?" he asks. Then he points at the sink. "Crap. I should have washed that for you and had you sit down." I hold up my hands and pat the air before he can get back up. I'm fine. I just had a hard time catching my breath and got a little lightheaded." I wait for him to be fully settled in the chair, then turn and wash the coffee pot, saying over my shoulder, "You're a fan, huh? Well, that makes one of you." "Oh, I've been a fan for years," he says, and I hear the sincerity in his voice. "Is that so?" I ask. "Interesting." "Interesting?" he replies. "Yep, interesting," I say, and rinse the suds from the coffee pot. When the glass is clear, I turn off the faucet and grab a dish towel, then start drying the pot. When I turn around, Mr. Griffin is staring at me, that grin still in place. "So, I'm going to risk my career and call bullshit," I say as I dry the pot, then hang the dish towel back up. "Sorry if that's rude or crude or insulting, but there's no fucking way you've been a fan for years." "Oh, and why is that?" he asks, his grin switched out for puzzlement. "You do know what kind of radio station you invested in, right?" I ask. "Of course I do," he replies and nods. "I wouldn't be good at what I do if I missed a detail like that." "Then you know that the broadcast can't be heard by the living," I state. "Other than some wisps of voices hidden in quiet static, no one alive ever hears anything that comes from those towers out back." "Oh, I am very aware of the special circumstances under which this station operates," Mr. Griffin says, and the puzzlement becomes boredom. "But I'm not much of a believer in limitations." "Right," I say, not quite buying it. I hold up the coffee pot. "Well, I better go get this started. My slot starts soon. Hard to get through the night without a little pep juice." I clear my throat, and that kicks off another round of coughing. A thick, mucousy pressure works its way up from my lungs, and I hope I can cough some of the gunk out. But like it has been these past few days, right when I think things are going to loosen in my chest, nothing breaks free, and I'm stuck coughing, and coughing with little to show for it. "I'm sorry," Mr. Griffin says, and I can almost feel a physical sadness coming off of him. "That cannot be fun." "It's not," I say, then look at the coffee pot, the empty coffee pot. "Oops." I go back to the sink and fill the pot with warm water, then turn and walk to the break room door. "My slot starts soon, but feel free to swing by the studio when you have a moment," I say, "provided the on-the-air sign is off." That's kinda important. I'd love to hear why you're a fan, and there's no way you can hear my broadcast. Yes, well, you assume I only know you from WHDS, he says. But I have been listening to you since Cleveland, to be honest. No limitations with those broadcasts, he chuckles. You were wild back then. Puzzlement fills my features. I know because his chuckle turns into a laugh as he looks at me. I'm older than I look, he says. A lot older than you look, I say. That was my first gig as a jock. I really went over the top in order to stand out from the rest of Cleveland's DJs. Sometimes my over the top went over the line, but I never did get dinged by the FCC. Oh, you came close, he crows, still laughing. So close, man. You must be from Cleveland. And your dad or mom listened to my show in the car, right? I ask, gesturing at him with the coffee pot. Because no matter how much older you are than you look, you ain't old enough to have been an adult when I was in Cleveland. Oh, no, not from Cleveland, he says. Never listened to the radio with a mom or a dad. He stops laughing and shrugs. But that's a different story. You should get to the studio and make you some pep juice. Yeah, okay, sure, I say and nod at him. Nice meeting you, Mr. Griffin. The pleasure is all mine, he says and nods back. I take the coffee pot of water back to the studio, wait for the light above the door to turn off, then open the studio door and head straight for the coffee maker. So, I met Mr. Griffin, I say to Sienna as she fiddles with a couple of knobs on the control board console. He seems nice. Yes, because that sarcastic tone really sells it, Sienna says. And, for the record, he is nice. I tried 100 ways to either piss him off or gross him out, and he rolled with every sick thing I said. Weird, I say. No one is that understanding. I mean, you've made nuns cry. They had it coming, she responds, then holds up a finger as she places her headphones back over her ears. And that was the Count Basie Orchestra's rendition of On the Sunny Side of the Street, with a little help from none other than Ella Fitzgerald. Thank you for listening to WHDS, bringing radio to those in need the most, one song at a time. She glances over at me and gives me a wink. I have one more track for you, then Freddy Hayes takes over for the night, she continues. He's got a nasty bark going on, so be nice to him tonight, folks. I know some of you who call in expect a lot from Freddy, but he's just a DJ like me and can only do so much. Let's keep the expectations of miracles a little more realistic, shall we? There's a tap at the window that looks in at the studio, and I see Dennis standing out in the hall with his shoulders and hands raised in a "What the hell, Sienna?" gesture. She blows him a kiss, then says, Let me sign off with a personal favorite from a deceased artist. This is an old one, real old, and should play out long enough for Freddy to get settled and hopefully find an oxygen tank so he doesn't gasp for breath in your ears all night, listeners. I know some of you went out that way, and who wants to be reminded of how they died, right? I actually hear Dennis yell, What the heck, Sienna? From out in the hallway. She's laying it on thick tonight. We're going with Rachmaninoff's Isle of the Dead, Opus 29, Sienna says, and stares right at Dennis. Which means, in exactly 18 minutes and 40 seconds, you'll have the pleasure of Freddy Hayes' silky voice in your long dead ears. Or not so long dead, depending on your expiration date. Dennis throws his hands in the air and walks off. You trying to get fired? I ask, when she cuts the mic and sets the headphones down in front of her on the console. Sienna shrugs and gets up. She stretches and stretches and reminds me of my cat, Lucy. Well, my late cat, Lucy. She passed only a couple of months ago, right before this lung crap took hold. Whether I keep my job or not isn't up to Dennis anymore, she says. Why's that? I ask. She had been gathering up her stuff. An empty coffee mug, her water bottle, some bags of chips from the break room, a hoodie, and her phone. But she stops all of that when I ask my question. Wait, I thought you said you met Mr. Griffin, she responds. Yeah, I did, so? And you two didn't talk? We did talk, I say. Some. But not about your career and future here? Nope. I only went in there to rinse and fill the coffee pot. He did mention he's a fan, and made up some crap about listening to me in Cleveland. Why is that crap? Sienna asks. Because you weren't even born yet when I worked that gig, let alone him, I say and shrug. And while I'm flattered by him saying that, I'm also on my guard. On your guard? Yeah, I mean, I'd like my new boss to at least be good at lying. That one was a stinker the second it left his mouth. I do not need some rich guy trying to butter me up with bullshit. Totally agree, Sienna says, and I can feel the comment coming before it leaves her mouth. Rich guys need to stick with butter when buttering people up. Using bullshit instead just isn't going to fly. And it stinks too. Not like butter, which is creamy and... Good night, Sienna, I say and roll my eyes. Oh, are we done here? She asks, and finishes gathering her stuff. I guess we are. As she passes me, she puts her hand on my chest. Please go to the doctor tomorrow, will you? As a favor to me? Why would I do a favor for you? I ask sarcastically. Because I'm like a daughter to you, and you love me, and you don't want me to worry, she says, her hand still on my chest. I can't tell if she's kidding, but knowing Sienna like I do, I put my hand on hers and say, That is very sweet and nice of you, but I'm broke, and there's no hidden wealth in my will, so you can stop trying to suck up to me. Her hand turns into a fist, and she knocks on my sternum, which causes me to start coughing. You deserve that, you jerk, she says and pulls her hand away. And go to the goddamn doctor. Okay, I say and cough. Okay. I cough some more. I'll go tomorrow. Good, she says and opens the studio door. Promise? Not in the least, I say, and finally manage not to cough after each word. Good night, Sienna. Good night, asshole, she says and leaves, but not without flipping me off and giving me a warm smile as she walks past the studio window. Alone at last, I say, and pour myself a steaming mug of Joe from the still brewing coffee. I take my mug over to the chair in front of the console, set it down by a notepad I use every night to mark the times and instances when things get either really weird or they get really sad. There's some middle ground, but I don't bother notating that. Weird and sad make for better highlights the next day, when the daytime jocks do the best of Freddy segments for those who don't always listen at night. Now, to be honest, and not to toot my own horn, Mr. Griffin telling me he is a huge fan of my work here was only bullshit because the living can't hear the broadcast from the station. Not because I have what regular stations call the shit shift, since the nighttime audience is generally pretty sparse after midnight. Not for WHDS though. My time slot, from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., while not always the station's most popular slot, does rank up there. It makes sense when you think about it. The dead get restless in the dark and stillness of night, not during the bright chaos of daytime. And my show isn't exactly the same as everyone else's. No, I mix things up a little, and while I do play a music track here and there, it's mostly a call-in show, which is what I prepare for as I make sure I have everything I need. Coffee? Check. Water bottle? Oh, here in my backpack. Sealed, luckily, so check on that one. Pillow for my lower lumbar because my back is shit and coughing isn't helping? Not check. I look around the studio but don't see it. A glance at the time tells me I have about 5 minutes before Isle of the Dead is over. I get up and hunt every nook and cranny in the studio, which leaves me 3 minutes. Where's my back pillow? I shout into the hallway. Which one of you bastards took my pillow? There's no response, and a quick glance over my shoulder tells me I have 90 seconds until air. Here, Wendy says as she comes around the corner, my lumbar pillow in one hand and her phone in the other. She doesn't even look at me as she walks by and hands me the pillow. Sorry, forgot to put it back. You use this while I'm not here? I ask her, but she doesn't respond, and keeps her nose in her phone and heads to the break room. I rush back, get my pillow set behind me, and then watch the clock continue to count down until it's go time. Good evening, listeners, I say into the mic as I bring the boom arm closer to my face. This is your friend and confidant, Freddy Hayes, ready for another night of tales told and kind messages from loved ones. I'll have a nice selection of tracks to play in between the calls, but those are for later. Let's go to the lines and see who has something they want to say to a dear departed. And that's my show in a nutshell. The living call in and tell stories about the people they've lost or talk directly to their late loved ones, hoping to mend a rift or to just say they still think of them. And I add some music here and there since I'm still alive and living folks need to pee sometimes. A row of 6 buttons on the phone in front of me lights up almost instantly. Of course, the living can't hear the show since we broadcast on a frequency meant only for the dead, which means they have had to find out about WHDS some way else. I know we get write-ups in local publications now and again, especially around Halloween. But how folks find us each night, I have no idea. Like most of what we do at WHDS, it's part art, part science, and all mystery. Pressing the line 1 button, the phone automatically switches all audio to the broadcast line into my headphones. "You've called Freddy Hayes," I say, answering the first call of the night. "How can WHDS bring you a little peace tonight?" A woman says. It's a fairly common response to that question. Most folks don't believe any of what we do at WHDS, and I don't blame them. A radio station that only the dead can hear? Sounds like a scam to me. Except, no one pays us anything except for the advertisers. And that's an entire system I don't understand. Who are we selling to if the living can't hear us? We don't have any web presence ever since that tech guy sold us on the idea a few years back. He built us a website so the station could be streamed through some player or whatever, and he promptly went insane the second the website was live. When I say insane, I mean pulling out all of his hair by the roots and trying to eat it insane. As far as I know, they still shave his head daily at the hospital he lives in. "Hey, no need to be shy," I say into the mic as the caller drags out their hesitation. "Is this your first time calling?"
Yes.
"What's your name?"
Margie.
"Well, Margie, let me assure you that you have nothing to be afraid of."
I'm not afraid.
"Sure you are. And there's no embarrassment in being afraid. Calling into a radio station so you can send a message to a dead loved one is kind of freaky, don't you think?"
It's not a loved one I want to talk to."
"Message," I say, correcting her. This is an important distinction. The nature of our station means we don't have much wiggle room when it comes to what we can and cannot claim. By saying we send messages to the dead, messages callers say themselves, not us, then we avoid the whole fraud thing because we make no guarantees that the dead actually get the message. It's a gray area, sure, but it's better than saying we talk directly to the dead. That's a solid statement that can't be walked back or lawyered around. Saying we talk to the dead instead of just passing on messages would definitely bring the FCC down on our asses. There's a lot of red tape in broadcast radio, and the length of that tape quadruples when you're WHDS. One caller complains, and we are in deep doo-doo. The woman doesn't say anything after I correct her, so I give a little nudge and say, "Not a loved one? Let me remind you that we do not condone any crimes or illegal activities. If you are looking for revenge on a cheating spouse or that bully from 4th grade, stick to Facebook."
No, I don't want revenge,
she says finally after a second, when I think her call has dropped.
No one harmed me. I did the harming.
"Really?" I ask, and pick up my pen so I can note the time. "Can I get your full name?"
Do I have to say it?
She asks.
I'm worried that this will get out.
"Do you have your radio on?" I ask.
Yes.
"Is it dialed to 91.9 FM, WHDS?
Yes.
Do you hear me talking?"
No.
"Then no one will hear you talking except for the deceased."
But you record the shows, right? I heard you record the shows.
"We do record the shows, yes. But those files are for internal use only. No one outside the station ever hears them. Ever."
But you could share the recording of this call with the authorities, right? Just email them an audio file?
Margie, I can assure you that not once in all the decades WHDS has been on the air has any caller gotten blowback from what they have said. And you have to trust me when I say I have heard it all. From the benign to the most malignant behavior ever described. Never has any authority asked us to provide copies of the calls we receive.
I don't know,
she says, and my finger hovers over the call button, ready to go to the next caller if this one doesn't start playing ball. I completely understand, Margie, I say. Thank you for calling tonight. Maybe next time you'll feel...
I killed my friend and her husband on accident,
the woman says.
I'd like to say sorry to them, if they're listening.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, I say. Not my first homicide confession. Not even the 88th. Now, I have no idea if they're listening or not, but getting something like that off your chest can do wonders for... I break out into a coughing fit and have to mute the mic quickly.
Hello?
Margie asks.
Are you there? Did we get cut off?
The coughing doesn't stop. My lungs ache and my chest muscles almost cramp, but I manage to eke a couple of smooth breaths in between the coughs, and that slowly chills my breathing out.
Hello?
Margie shouts.
Did you hang up on me?
Sorry, I gasp into the microphone. I had a little coughing fit there. What I was saying was that while we aren't the Catholic Church, we do take confession, and confession is always good for the soul.
I don't know,
she responds.
Hey, you already did the hard part,
I say, keeping her strung along. I've gotten too far for her to hang up now, and I need to make up for the coughing. You admitted what you did. That's the first dozen steps right there. Now all you have to do is unburden yourself with the details and then hang up. What happens after that isn't up to you, and it certainly isn't part of the land of the living. Does that make sense?
I suppose,
she says. Then what do you have to lose? I ask.
Okay,
she says. Okay?
Okay.
Great, I say, and let the relief really come out in my voice. I need her to feel like she's doing me a favor, like she's in control. It was Margie, right?
Right.
So tell me your whole name, so listeners know it's you. Then tell me what's got you troubled, Margie. She states her full name and starts in about how she had been driving home one night after a few drinks with some girlfriends. She only had maybe 3 or 4 drinks, which isn't unusual on a Saturday night. She did it all the time, so she didn't think anything of it. Not until she turned the corner to her house and didn't see her neighbors taking a late-night stroll. They were crossing the street just as she was turning, and she was turning way too fast to stop. One double thump later, and a bad choice to flee the scene and hide in her garage, which was only 3 houses down, and Margie was officially a hit-and-run fugitive. Except no one heard anything. No one saw anything. The angle was bad, and not a single neighbor's doorbell or security camera caught what happened. And it was raining, so the bloody tire tracks washed away before Margie even pulled into her driveway and then her garage. I wait for her to continue, but when she doesn't, I say, "Thank you, Margie. I don't know if your neighbors are listening, but if they are, I hope they hear how sorry you are."
Oh, I'm not sorry.
What's that? I ask, confused. You specifically said you wanted to tell them how sorry you are for accidentally killing them.
Yes, I'd like to say that,
she says.
But after telling you what I did, I just don't feel sorry anymore. They were shitty neighbors, and they treated me like I was in a lesser class than them. Now that I think of it, I'm glad they're dead. The young man who moved into their house has really done some great landscaping, and he always does it with his shirt off. And the neighborhood association has really thrived. We no longer have the Dawsons to worry about objecting to anything fun simply because it doesn't match their aesthetic. When I glance away from the control board and out the window, I see Mr. Griffin standing there, intently watching me. I give him a smile, but he doesn't return it right away. He has his head cocked like he's listening to something, like he's listening to the broadcast. Which can't be, because I can't even hear it,
no matter what switches I switch or dials I dial.
Hey, Margie?
I interrupt, because if I don't, she'll keep on trying to convince herself that vehicular manslaughter was the solution to all of her problems.
Yes?
Can you do me a favor and say hello to Mr. Griffin?
Who?
Just do it for me, please. Your story has reminded me of something, and I want to test it out. Mr. Griffin's eyes shift, and his stare goes from looking at me but far away to looking at me and intently focused.
Say hello, Mr. Griffin?
Margie asks. Yep, I say.
Okay.
She says and clears her throat.
Hello, Mr. Griffin.
Mr. Griffin's eyes narrows, and the corners of his mouth turn up in a smile. Thanks, Margie, I say. And good luck with that lack of guilt you got there. I'm sure it'll serve you well in life. I press the button and the call ends. I'm gonna play a song before I move on to the next caller, I say into the mic. Don't go anywhere, you silly ghouls. I start some bluegrass song I know that rambles and meanders on for a full 15 minutes because some jam band decided that they wanted to play with banjos and mandolins. Then I push away from the console, lean back in my chair, and gesture for Mr. Griffin to come into the studio. He points to himself like he can't believe he's been chosen. I play along and nod enthusiastically. He hurries to the door and pushes it open, sticking his head inside the studio. Are you sure? I don't want to interrupt you or be in your way. Nah, come on in, I say and wave him inside. He rushes in and carefully closes the door so it doesn't make a sound, which is totally unnecessary since the door has silent hinges, a padded frame, and there are 6 morons high as kites trying to noodle out Old Rocky Top playing over the air. So the mic isn't live anyway. That was quite a story, Mr. Griffin says as he looks around. I point at the chair by the coffee maker. Thanks. He sits down, then rolls the chair right over to me. Over there is fine, I say, still pointing to the spot the chair had been. Oh, sorry, Mr. Griffin says, and rolls the chair back next to the coffee maker. I thought we had to be close together. Close together? For what? Before he can answer, my lungs betray me yet again, and I double over as I hack and cough, hack and cough, hack and cough. Then I snort a huge wad of snot up my nose, reach over the small trash can, and spit the wad in there. Sorry, I say and gasp a few times when I can finally catch my breath. That was pretty gross. You're getting worse, Mr. Griffin states. And it is a statement like he knows for certain I'm getting worse, and it is just informing me of his conclusion. I'll be fine, I say and take a drink of water. We sit there. He smiles at me, but it's a concerned smile. I stare at him, but it's a you're full of shit stare. There's no way you heard her story, I say. The files haven't been uploaded to the drive yet. Oh, I don't need the files. I heard it live, he says and points to the hallway. Out there. Well, I was watching you. Didn't you see me? I did. And I know that the audio piped out into that hallway, and all throughout the building, is from the broadcast, not a direct feed from the studio, I say, which means you couldn't have heard her story. Margie, he says. Her name was Margie. And wow, what a doozy she told. I scratch my chin and try to puzzle it all out, but before I can, another coughing fit overtakes me. That cough will be the death of you, Mr. Griffin says. I can't argue with him there. It sure feels like this damn cough is gonna kill me, but I manage to get it under control again. Why do you think you can hear the broadcast? I ask the man. I roll my eyes at the look of concern on his face. I'm fine, don't worry about me. Just tell me why you think you heard Margie's story. Because I did hear it, Freddy, Mr. Griffin replies. Clear as day on the Greek Isles. The Greek Isles? What does Greece have to do with this? I ask, giving him shit. More than you know, he says, which is unexpected. He shifts in his chair and glances at the coffee maker. Coffee, the beans of wonder. How many people have gone on to meet their maker early because of the way this simple extract speeds up the metabolism
thus reducing a person's life force that much faster? Is that a rhetorical question? I ask. And what do you have against coffee? Me? Oh, nothing at all, he says. I love coffee. I may even have a cup on this trip. An indulgence, if you will. Sure, I say and nod. Then I laugh. You're a strange one, Mr. Griffin. I cannot disagree, he says and laughs with me. So, back to Margie, I say. You're just messing with me, right? You couldn't actually hear what she said, right? He leans forward, his elbows on his thighs, his eyes on me. Then he proceeds to rattle off Margie's story almost verbatim. When he's done, he leans back in his chair, then turns and smiles at the coffee. Yes, before I leave I'll have a cup, he says. Time is short. One must use it while one has it. You're telling me you hear the broadcast, I say. Huh? Oh yes, I most certainly do, Mr. Griffin says, tearing his eyes away from the coffee maker. I've been listening to your broadcast for years now. It's one reason I have invested in the station. I didn't want a talent such as yours to go to waste. You think I'm going to waste here? I ask, starting to get annoyed. I can't figure the guy's angle out. What? Oh dear me, no, he says, and actually gasps as he places his hand to his chest. On the contrary, you are exactly where you need to be, and I hope you will stay on for a very, very long time. I have plans for you, Freddy. Great and wonderful plans. He nods and smiles. I smile back, but don't nod. I'm so confused, I wouldn't know what to even nod for. Then I realize the jam band bluegrass wannabes are wrapping up a 10-minute exploration of the C minor chord. So I focus my attention back on the console and pull the mic close to my mouth. Just as the band is about to hit their 16th crescendo, I fade the song out and say, well, Rocky Top won't ever sound the same after that, right, folks? I laugh and glance at Mr. Griffin. He's sitting there, rapt with attention. I think it's time for another call, I say and raise my eyebrows at Mr. Griffin. He just smiles. I raise them higher, then look over at the door. His smile falters a little, then he lets out a silent gasp and nods over and over. Sorry, he mouths and gets up from the chair. He looks like he isn't sure what to do, so I point at the door. He nods and mouths, thanks. He leaves quickly, but takes just enough time to ease the door closed, even though he doesn't have to. All right, let's see who we have waiting on hold, I say into the mic, then press the lit-up button for line 2. This is WHDS. I'm Freddy Hayes, and you're on the air. Who am I speaking to? Hello, Freddy, a deep voice says. Remember me? I hang up immediately. Uh-oh, looks like we had a technical glitch, I say as I try not to hyperventilate. Then I press the lit button for line 3. This is WHDS. I'm Freddy Hayes, and you're on the air. Who am I speaking to? You know who you are speaking to, Freddy. I hang up again. Dang, folks. Sorry about that. Got some pranksters tonight. My finger hesitates over the lit button for line 4. Then I ease it away and pick a track at random. How about I get this glitch sorted while you listen to... I read the name of the track and scrunch up my face. Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin, because why not? The music starts playing, and I kill the sound in the studio. Then I stare at the lights on the phone. All lines are active and blinking. I take a couple of deep breaths and will myself not to start coughing. When I know I have it under control, I pick up the handset, press line 1 and say, Who is this? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was calling the radio station, a woman says. She is young by the sound of her voice. Someone gave me this number and said I could call and, well, talk to the dead. You can't talk to the dead, no, I say. The young woman laughs. Of course not. That'd be crazy. No. What I mean is, you don't talk to the dead, I clarify. You tell your story, or say your piece over the air, and the dead hear you.
It's a one-way street without any signposts, if you get what I'm saying.
I don't. No, not really.
You talk, they listen. That's it.
Oh, okay. So are we on the air now? I thought I found the station, but there's nothing but a quiet hiss. I think I hear voices, but I'm not sure. 91.9 FM, yes?
That's the station, I say. And you can't hear the broadcast on your end. It's strange, I know, but that's how it works. And no, you were not on the air. Not yet. What was your name?
Alice.
Alice, I'm Freddy. And if you will just sit tight, I'll get this going the right way. Let me fade this song out, and we will be ready for your story. I moved a slider and the ragtime slowly goes silent. I bring the mic in close and say, "There's just something so charming about these old tunes, don't you think?" Well, it looks like I have the technical issues under control now, and I already have a caller on the line. Say hello to everyone, Alice.
Who's Alice, Freddy?
The deep voice says. Fuck! I snap and shove my chair back from the console.
You there, Freddy?
The voice asks.
Knock, knock. Is Freddy home?
A chill runs through me and I start coughing again.
Freddy, Freddy, Freddy,
the voice says, and I want to cut the line and silence that voice forever. But each time I reach for the console, a cough makes me crumple in on myself. I bend all the way over, my chest against the tops of my thighs, and I dig deep, looking for that one cough that will clear out my lungs once and for all. But I can't find it. All I get are coughs that are half-formed yet fully painful. They constrict my chest and never loosen anything. My lungs feel as if they are stuffed with moldy cotton and steel wool, all wrapped in barbed wire.
Oh man, Freddy, you don't sound good.
The voice continues as I struggle to breathe.
I think it's about time you retire, don't you think?
Go away, I managed to choke out.
Can't do that, Freddy,
the voice says.
And you know why. Retirement time. What do you think? Are you ready?
I shake my head over and over, unable to even force the word no up and out of my throat. There's a knock at the studio window and I look up. Mr. Griffin is staring in, his eyes wide and worried. He holds up a finger, telling me to hold on for 1 second, then runs off. The coughing is so rough that I almost feel like I'm going to throw up.
Freddy,
the voice continues.
I really don't think Vic's Vapor Rub is going to fix that. You should call it a day. Give up. There are plenty of other DJs out there that can do what you do.
I place my palm on my knees and push up, angling my face toward the ceiling in hopes I can open my airways better. I get maybe an extra gasp, but that's about it. Is this what drowning feels like? The studio door bursts open and Sienna comes running in. I thought she'd left for the night. Hold on! She yells, then pulls something from her back pocket. I really hope this works. My entire body shakes and shudders from the coughing, and I nearly fall out of my chair. I have you, Freddy, Mr. Griffin says, appearing at my side. Then Sienna puts something in her mouth, bites off a cap, and spits the cap across the studio. Raising the thing into the air, she brings it down fast, slamming the point into my leg. Instantly, my lungs fill with air, and my heart feels like it is 5 million times bigger than it was only half a second before. I gasp and breathe. Gasp and breathe.
Oh, someone called the cavalry,
the voice says.
Lucky you, Freddy. Looks like you have a little more time after all. But not much time, trust me. I'll call back later. We'll talk.
The line goes dead, and I manage to pat Sienna's leg. She understands what I need and leaves my side to go to the console and get some music track started. I don't recognize the tune. She must have clicked the first random track she came to. What the fuck? I manage to croak out as my chest heaves. I rub my ribs and groan. I feel wild. Epinephrine, Sienna says. For my strawberry allergy. I wasn't sure if it would work, but it looks like it did the trick. You good, Freddy? I'll live, I say, and think about what the voice said before.
I'll call back later. We'll talk.
I know that the voice will make good on that statement. It found me here at WHDS, and it isn't going to stop until I relent. That guy, Mr. Griffin says and pats my leg. He's relentless. A little too relentless, am I right? It's like he read my mind. I slowly turn my head and look at Mr. Griffin as he stares and smiles at me like he's waiting for something. You know him? I ask. Know him? Mr. Griffin laughs like I just told the best joke ever. Oh, that is rich. He pats my leg over and over. Do I know him? Hilarious. Sienna and I share a look. I can tell she has no better idea as to what the hell is going on than I do. Well, she has even less of a clue since she doesn't know the voice and what it means. I, unfortunately, do. How do you know him? I ask Mr. Griffin. He laughs some more, then lets it slowly die down when he sees the look on my face. Oh, you want me to answer that? Mr. Griffin says. Everything all right in here? Dennis asks as he pokes his head in the studio. Oh, Mr. Griffin, there you are. We still have some papers to sign before our deal is concluded. Freddy, can I borrow Mr. Griffin for a second? Do you really not know what just happened? Sienna asks Dennis. The poor guy looks so confused that I take sympathy on him and say, Yeah, you can borrow Mr. Griffin. No problem. Are you sure? Mr. Griffin asks me. That was a close one. I'm fine now, I say and nod at Sienna. Thanks to Miss Strawberry Allergy over there. Glad to do my part, old man, Sienna says, then plops down in the chair and swivels to the console. In fact, I'll keep the tunes going while Freddy catches his breath. You are done for the night, I say. Go home, Sienna. Do I need to call the paramedics? Dennis asks, looking from me to Mr. Griffin, to Sienna, and back to me. I mean, I'm not sure they can get up here. The snow is already coming down hard. They said snow after midnight, but I guess it arrived early. It is almost midnight, I say and sit all the way up. I ease my back into the chair and let my arms hang loose. And that's why I'm not going home, Sienna says. The roads are too slick for my little Honda. I'd be crashing through a guardrail about halfway down the mountain, and it's a long way down. We have cots and sleeping bags in the storeroom, Dennis says. Yeah, I know where the stuff is, Denny, Sienna says, then waves him away. You go do your business stuff and let the talent handle the airwaves, okay? I shall return, Freddy, Mr. Griffin says to me. It'll be time for our talk then. He eases past Dennis and into the hallway. You sure I shouldn't call the paramedics? Dennis asks me. It won't matter, I say, thinking of the voice. That's bleak as fuck, Sienna says and starts a new music track. Dennis nods at Sienna, frowns at me, then leaves. You gonna tell me what's going on? Sienna asks, swiveling the chair around to face me. She crosses her arms. And no bullshit. I don't know, I say. What did I just say about no bullshit? Sienna snaps. It's no bullshit with all that, I say and wave a hand at the studio window. I'm still figuring out this Griffin guy, and Dennis is just being weird. Have you seen him this chipper at night before? He's just excited the station isn't closing down, Sienna says, then hooks a thumb over her shoulder at the console and the phone. But I'm not talking about the station. I'm talking about you. I want to know what happened in here. Griffin says some guy called in and you freaked out. Is that what he said? Well, no, he said it like... And she clears her throat so she can do a solid impression of Mr. Griffin. A rude gentleman is harassing Freddy, exacerbating his already fragile health. That sounds more like it, I respond and rub my forehead. Who's this rude gentleman? Sienna asks. And how the hell did Griffin even hear that guy? Was he in the studio with you? He says he can hear the broadcast, I say and shrug.
Seriously? Yep. Sounds like someone has a bad case of FOMO. That's what I thought. But he heard the last caller's entire story and could recite it back to me. If that's FOMO, then I'm not sure what he's missing out on. He heard the last caller? That's what I just said. Don't be a dick. I feel like ass. Cut me some slack. Never.
We both laugh. Then Sienna returns her attention to the console and plays another tune. When she swivels back around to face me, she says,
We'll answer the phone together after this song. I'm perfectly capable of continuing my shift alone, Sienna.
I reply and smile warmly.
But thank you. Go set up a cot and get some sleep. If we get snowed in, then it'll be you and I tomorrow all day until the roads are cleared. They were calling for over a foot or two tonight,
Sienna responds and tilts her head back to stare at the ceiling. She blows out a long breath, then looks back at me.
Fine, I'll grab some shut-eye. But you send someone to get me if you think you need a break, okay? I do not want to get up tomorrow and find your corpse in here. Got me? I got you,
I say and nod.
I'd rather avoid that too.
She looks over her shoulder at the phone.
You could just not answer it,
she says.
Kind of defeats the whole point of my show,
I say and shake my head.
People expect to be able to call in and tell their stories. Yeah, I know, but no buts,
I interrupt, then make a shooing gesture.
Now get the fuck up out of my chair. I have work to get back to.
I keep shooing until she relents and stands up.
Thank you, Sienna,
she says.
I did thank you, didn't I?
I reply, then stand up with her and take her by the shoulders.
Thank you, Sienna. You probably saved my life. Plus, I've never had an adrenaline rush like that before. It's kind of like being on a roller coaster, but minus the hassle. So thanks for that too. Anytime,
she says, then pauses.
No, not anytime. In fact, no time. Let's not do that again. Deal,
I say and steer her toward the studio door, then give her a little shove out into the hallway.
I'll let you know if I need any help. Go get some sleep. Are you sure? Like, really sure?
She asks.
Really,
I say. I wave as the door shuts. She flips me off. Then I return to the console and the mic.
Well, folks, it has already been quite the night,
I say as I fade out the music.
Sorry for all the interruptions and weirdness. Let's try to get back to normal and see if we have any new messages from the living. Maybe one or two of you out there will get the apology or recognition you need to be able to move on. That's always our goal here at WHDS, bringing radio to those in need the most.
I reach out, and my finger hovers over the line 1 button. Then I press it.
Thank you for calling WHDS,
I say.
This is your host, Freddy Hayes, ready to help. Who am I speaking to?
No one responds, but it's not quite silent. I can hear shallow breaths.
Hello?
I say.
I can hear you breathing. What's your name?
Daddy?
A small voice asks, and I leap out of my chair.
No,
I say.
No.
Daddy, are you coming home soon?
The little voice asks.
When do I get to see you again?
The voice is a small boy's, and I obviously know who it is, but it can't be possible. The phone lines are for the living only. The dead can't call. They just can't, right? I mean, that's the way things work, right? But he called, didn't he? The deep voice. And I know he isn't alive. So maybe...
Daddy?
My son's voice asks.
Are you there?
I slowly sit back down and grip the boom arm. Then I bring the mic in close to my mouth and say,
I'm here.
Well, I knew you would be, Freddy.
The deep voice booms.
You son of a bitch.
I snarl.
Where's my son?
Oh, calm down.
The voice says.
Your son is at peace. He has been since he moved on. I was just fucking with you.
But it sounded like him,
I say and rub my face.
Why did it sound like him?
That?
The voice chuckles and then responds in a different man's voice.
I
I can do all kinds of voices, Freddy.
It shifts again, and a woman says,
Like this one.
It shifts once more, and a boy who is not my son says,
And this one. So many voices.
The studio door opens and Mr. Griffin walks in. His eyes are narrowed and serious.
Hang up,
He says.
What?
I ask, muting the mic.
Hang up. He's just going to keep calling and calling.
I say,
I'm sorry about this. It's all my fault. True, but fault is not an issue here.
He says and gets between me and the mic.
Jurisdiction is. How do I make this work? You want to talk to him?
I ask.
That's not a good idea. You don't know who this guy is. I know exactly who this guy is.
He replies.
How do I talk to him? Here you go,
I say, and unmute the mic.
You are live. Hello, Mr. Baxter.
Mr. Griffin says.
May I ask why you are calling?
Griffin? Griffin, is that really you?
The voice asks and laughs heartily.
What a nice surprise.
It's neither nice nor a surprise, Mr. Baxter.
Mr. Griffin says.
You know why I am here, and you know I have the first crack at this. You should not be calling.
Come on.
Mr. Baxter says.
He's mine, Griffin. I have claim.
The name Baxter lodges in my brain, but doesn't sit well. It's a squiggly memory that has wormed its way up through the skin, like a splinter being forced out. Mr. Baxter, a man I made a deal with so long ago. A coppery taste fills my mouth, and I start to cough again. But it's not as bad as before, and I have it under control in seconds.
You know the protocols, Mr. Baxter?
Mr. Griffin says.
There is always a choice in the end.
He made his choice.
Mr. Baxter replies.
And think of all the listeners out there who also made their choices and are now waiting in limbo, hoping a loved one or the person responsible for their stay in purgatory calls in one night to help ease them on their way. Griffin, what about all those who played by the rules? Why does Freddy get special treatment?
Because he is who he is, Mr. Baxter.
Mr. Griffin says, and glances back at me.
One who can straddle the line. They are rare, and when we find one, I get first crack. That's the rule.
Rules.
Mr. Baxter says and sighs.
Why even have them if they can be bent and broken and completely disregarded?
None of that is true, Mr. Baxter, and you know it.
Mr. Griffin says, still looking at me.
Rules are made, yes, but it is the circumstances that dictate which rules come into play and when. The rules are never bent, broken, or disregarded. They are simply used when appropriate.
And you think the rules that gives you first crack is appropriate for this situation, despite the ironclad deal I made with old Freddy there all those years ago? Is that what you were telling me, Griffin?
I prefer Mr. Griffin.
And I prefer to get what's coming to me.
Be careful what you wish for.
Are you threatening me, Mr. Griffin?
Baxter's contempt drips from the name.
Can I have a say?
I ask.
No!
Griffin and Baxter yell at the same time.
Sorry.
Mr. Griffin says to me.
That was rude of me to yell. All good,
I say.
but, maybe we should take this conversation off the air. I'm sure it's freaking out the listeners.
Let them be freaked out.
Mr. Baxter says.
A little fear is good for them.
Don't they have enough fear already?
I ask, wading into unknown territory.
They're already dead, so why make things worse?
You assume being dead is worse.
Mr. Baxter says.
Sometimes life is the worst part of existence. Isn't that right, Freddy? Isn't that why you made the deal with me all those years ago?
No, I say quietly.
What's that? Did you say something?
Mr. Baxter calls out.
It's hard to hear you. Get closer to the mic, will you, Freddy?
Mr. Griffin shakes his head, but I stand up and get closer to the mic because I have something to say.
You preyed on me,
I say and shake my head.
It's no excuse. I did make the deal, but you knew I was vulnerable.
And why were you vulnerable?
Mr. Baxter asks.
You know why.
I'd like to hear you say it.
He responds.
It's the
the least you can do, considering what a spot you've put me in.
A spot I've put you in?
I snap and start coughing. Mr. Griffin places a hand on my arm, and the pain in my chest eases until I can breathe normally again. He nods at the mic.
My family died and you came calling. You just knocked on our door and offered me a way to get rid of the pain, a way to focus on my work and put all the hurt behind me.
I cough hard and hold up a hand as Mr. Griffin reaches out to me again. I shake my head and he withdraws his hand. A few more coughs rattle up out of me before I say,
You gave me fame and notoriety. It was all short-lived, though.
Just like your family.
Mr. Baxter says and laughs.
That's quite enough, thank you.
Mr. Griffin says.
I am not going to tolerate cruelty.
That's rich.
Mr. Baxter says, still laughing.
Have you offered your deal yet, Griffin?
I have not.
Mr. Griffin says.
Then why don't you do that, and then come talk to me about cruelty?
Mr. Baxter says.
I'll call back.
The line goes dead, and I hip-check Mr. Griffin out of the way so I can start a new song. It's some old Delta blues song. Appropriate. I look at Mr. Griffin. He looks at me.
I think I should talk to Dennis,
I say.
Find out from him what's really going on.
Dennis is gone.
Mr. Griffin says.
He left?
I ask.
In this snowstorm? I didn't say he left in the snowstorm.
Mr. Griffin says.
I said he's gone. I have taken over for him. What? Bullshit.
I say, and then set 3 more songs to play so I can hurry out of the studio and storm down the hallway to Dennis's office. It's empty. All of his photos and posters are gone. The little plant that refused to die even though it was stuck in the corner is gone too. The knickknacks. The sweater that hung on the back of Dennis's chair in case he got cold. There isn't a trace of the man.
He fulfilled his contract and got to leave,
Mr. Griffin says, from directly behind me. I would have jumped if I had any jump left in me, but I just stand there and stare at the empty office.
What do you mean you're taking over?
I ask, when I turn to face Mr. Griffin.
Is that part of the investment? You get Dennis fired and take his place? Dennis was not fired,
Mr. Griffin says, looking taken aback.
He did an incredible job and has been rewarded for that performance. The same can happen for you, Freddy, if you let it. The deal Baxter was talking about,
I say, and push around him as I head back to the studio.
Yes, the deal,
Mr. Griffin says, following me. I try to shut the studio door on him, but those damn hinges don't allow me to slam it fast enough. He places a hand against the door and pushes it all the way open with ease. It's like I'm not even on the other side.
Come on in, I guess,
I say and go sit down at the console.
Take a seat if you want, but I have a job to do. Don't you want to hear the deal?
Mr. Griffin asks.
I think I've had enough of deals,
I say and glance at the phone and its row of lit buttons.
Now, I'm going to answer this and hope it's a regular caller. Then I'll do my...
I don't finish the sentence. I can't finish the sentence. The cough hits me 10 times harder than they have so far, and I grip the chair's armrests to keep from coughing myself out and onto the floor.
I can make that cough go away,
Mr. Griffin says.
I can give you a little bit of peace. Peace I hope you pass on to others.
I cough and cough. My eyes water, and Mr. Griffin looks like an image inside a kaleidoscope.
Just say you will think about it,
Mr. Griffin says, as my vision begins to swim.
That's all you have to do, is say you will think about the deal, and we can pause all of this agony until you make your decision.
My vision narrows into a pinpoint, and the studio seems so far away.
Please, Freddy,
Mr. Griffin pleads.
I am here to help. I am not Mr. Baxter. Griffin?
I croak out.
Yes, I'm Mr. Griffin.
He shouts, somehow seeming triumphant that I'm able to say his name.
Say you'll think about it, please.
My body jerks as the air in my system is used up.
I'll think about it,
I say, and instantly I can breathe again. Air has never tasted so good, although there is a stale quality to it that hits right at the end.
Good choice,
Mr. Griffin says.
Now, here's the deal. Hold on,
I say, and cue up 3 more songs.
I'm gonna have to answer the phone soon. You will, I promise.
Mr. Griffin says.
And you will do so much good when you answer those phones. Times have changed, and this station needs to change too. Will you stay on and help me change it, Freddy? How?
I ask and twirl my hand.
Pitch me, Mr. Griffin. Tell me how you are going to save me from him.
I nod at the phone.
So, for all these years, the station has broadcast the messages of the living to the dead.
Mr. Griffin says.
Do you know why, Freddy? Because weird shit.
I say and laugh. He doesn't laugh with me.
To be honest, no. It's just how it has been. And you haven't wondered why you accept this as fact?
He asks.
How do you mean? I mean, you work for a radio station that only broadcasts to the dead, and you take that as if it's a normal thing. I've never said it was normal. It's weird as hell. But then, so are a lot of jobs. That's acceptance. Why?
He doesn't wait for me to answer and jabs a finger at the phone.
Because Mr. Baxter got inside you when you made your deal with him. He warped your sense of what is real and what is not.
He raises his hands over his head and waves them about.
This station? You aren't here. You never have been. I'm sorry, what?
I ask and laugh again. He definitely doesn't laugh with me.
I'm pretty sure this is real. I've been coming here for for years. You are 83 years old and in a coma in the Woodland Heights nursing home,
Mr. Griffin says.
You haven't been on the air in a very long time. You are dying of advanced lung cancer and have been unconscious for weeks now. Weeks? Weeks. Not years? Not years. None of this is real? Mr. Baxter and I are very real,
Mr. Griffin says.
But the studio is only a way station, a pre-limbo, if you will. And Sienna and Dennis and Wendy, they're figments of my imagination? Is that what you're saying? Oh no, they are people just like you. No reason why stations can't be shared, especially by those who have similar backgrounds and inclinations.
It clicks.
Radio. No one listens to the radio anymore. Yet here we are. How old is Sienna really? Where is her body at? Now you are understanding,
Mr. Griffin says and shakes his head.
But Sienna's story is not mine to tell. Maybe one day she'll be where you are, and you'll learn all about her. And where exactly am I?
I ask, fearing I know the answer.
A crossroads,
Mr. Griffin says, confirming my fear.
Similar to one you were at when you met Mr. Baxter. But he can't claim your soul until you make your choice. Nothing is ever lost. There is always hope. And what is the decision I have to make? What's the deal you are offering? That you stay on as the night DJ and help me run the station until you get to move on like Dennis did,
he says.
But there will be changes to the format. Ah, here's the trick,
I say.
What changes are we looking at? No trick,
Griffin says.
An improvement. A huge improvement.
I wait. He grins and nods. I wait some more.
What improvement?
I ask.
Oh, sorry,
he says and rolls his eyes.
Silly me. The improvement is the broadcast will now go 2 ways. The living can still call in and say their piece to the dead, but the dead can call in too and say their piece to the living.
He does a little shoulder wiggle like he's proud of something.
It's a project I've been working on for a long while. You see, Freddy, this station has been solely focused on the living to give closure to the dead. But that only helps those who need the closure to come from the outside. But what about the dead who need to create the closure themselves? Folks who need to get something off their chest, or they stay in limbo forever. Why?
Mr. Griffin responds.
Why? Why does it matter?
I ask.
Well, because limbo is getting a little full.
Mr. Griffin answers.
We sorta need to make some room soon, or, well, bad things will happen.
I can only imagine,
I say, and then try not to imagine limbo at all.
And why me? Because you're already on the list, thanks to Mr. Baxter's efforts earlier in your life.
He says.
And because you have the skills to do the job.
And?
I ask, knowing there's more.
And you are straddling the plains between life and death.
Mr. Griffin admits.
You check all the boxes.
This would all seem insane, except I did make a deal with Baxter,
I say.
But over the years I convinced myself it wasn't real. You can't make deals with the devil.
Oh, he's not a devil.
Mr. Griffin says.
Neither am I. We're emissaries of existence.
So there's no hell?
I ask.
Oh, there is most certainly a hell,
Mr. Griffin says.
but that's a whole other organization. Mr. Baxter and others like us, we work for Limbo.
What? Then what does Baxter want with my soul?
I ask.
I don't know.
Mr. Griffin says and shrugs.
Probably put it up on his mantle or something. Mr. Baxter is an asshole, and he does things like that. Jesus,
I say, and look at the buttons on the phone.
Screw that guy.
I press line 1.
That you, Baxter?
I ask.
Hello, Freddy.
Mr. Baxter says.
Have you made your choice? Are you taking Griffin's deal?
What were you going to do with my soul?
That's none of your concern.
It kinda is my concern. What were you going to do with it?
My dining table is wobbly.
He says.
I was going to put it under one of the legs to stabilize it.
See,
Mr. Griffin whispers.
asshole.
You were going to use my soul as a shim?
Pretty much. Why? Is that a problem?
Yeah, it is. I'm taking Mr. Griffin's deal.
I had a feeling.
Mr. Baxter replies, disappointed.
Can't say I'm surprised. No one ever follows through on my deals. Stupid rules.
And he hangs up.
Total asshole.
I say to Mr. Griffin.
I know, right?
He says, then smiles at the console. I follow his smile and see there is now a second phone, and that phone has dozens of lit up buttons on it.
Holy crap.
I say.
Are those all the dead calling?
Yes.
What do I do?
That's up to you, Freddy.
Mr. Griffin says, and walks to the studio door.
I'll leave it in your capable hands.
Where are you going?
My office.
He says, and there's a sad tone to his voice.
Just like you, I have a job to do. And mine is to manage the station until Limbo is a little less crowded.
You're the new station manager?
We all have to make deals, Freddy. Even me.
He says and leaves. Then he gives me 2 enthusiastic thumbs up as he passes by the window. Just before the door closes, I realize I can hear music coming from out in the hallway. Music that is being broadcast from our station, which means everyone can hear us now.
Let's see who's listening,
I say, and clear my throat as I bring the mic in close.
Freddy Hayes here, ready for another night of tales told and kind messages sent from loved ones. But tonight we're changing things up. It's time for everyone, no matter where they are, to call in. So let's go to the phones and see who is calling from Limbo.
I reach out, and my finger hesitates over the new phone. Then I press the button for line 1.
This is Freddy Hayes. Who am I talking to?
Thanks for listening. If you enjoy these stories, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out some more of my episodes here.